Elliot Furman.
Paul James Fermato.
Carlton Douglas Bay Fife.
Frederick Neil Gabler.
Remembering
Richard
9/11 20 years later. It was a dark day many will never, ever forget. And this is a live look at Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan, New York City, where the annual remembrance service and reading of the victims' names lost at the World Trade Center site is already underway. Always a very emotional event. Good morning, everyone. I'm ABC 57's Brian Conybeare. September 11th, 2001 is one of those national tragedies forever seared into our collective memory. Nearly everyone old enough who was alive at the time remembers exactly where they were when those planes struck the Twin Towers in New York City. And the images from that day can bring back some very powerful emotions. So the story you're about to see will walk you through what happened 20 years ago today in New York City, in Washington, D.C., and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It will also show you the legacy from one young woman from South Bend who lost her life when the planes struck the Twin Towers in New York 20 years ago, and how her family has turned that tragedy into triumph, and they are still affecting people's lives to this day. But a warning, we are going to show you what happened in its entirety, and it can be very difficult to watch. On a crystal clear Tuesday morning 20 years ago, the unthinkable unfolded in New York City. At 8:46 a.m., just as millions of people were heading into work, a plane slams into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. And at first, everyone thought it must be a small private plane that somehow got into trouble. And as stunned commuters watched thick black smoke billowing from the huge gash in the side of the 110-story building, police, firefighters, and ambulance crews rushed to the scene in Lower Manhattan, along with reporters and camera crews rolling on nearly everything. Then at 9:03 a.m., the surreal scene takes an even darker turn. A second plane hits the World Trade Center's South Tower. And at that moment, everyone knew this was no accident. And at 9:59 a.m., less than an hour after the second plane hit, the entire South Tower, all 110 stories, suddenly comes crumbling down. Terrified commuters below, all rushing to get as far away from the World Trade Center as possible. 25 minutes later, the catastrophic collapse is repeated in the North Tower. The entire neighborhood and many people running for their lives wound up blanketed in a ghostly whitish dust.
I've never seen nothing like it in my life.
The nation later learned 4 commercial jetliners, all heading from the East Coast to California, loaded with passengers and highly flammable jet fuel, were hijacked by teams of suicidal Muslim extremists, mostly from Saudi Arabia, who slipped through airport security, hell-bent on attacking America and our way of life. The 2 other planes slamming into the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C. in a ball of flames, and in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where patriotic passengers fought back on board United Flight 93, storming the cockpit and crashing before the hijackers could target the White House or the U.S. Capitol building. Then President George W. Bush getting the news while reading to a school classroom in Florida, and just days later, visiting what eventually became known as Ground Zero himself, the pile of smoldering, twisted metal and concrete where the frantic effort to find survivors was still underway.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
A total of 2,977 people lost their lives on September 11, 2001. Rescue crews pausing for a silent salute every time human remains were found on the pile. President Bush eventually launching airstrikes on al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, where the deadly terror plot was hatched, leading to the 20-year U.S. military involvement involvement that just ended in chaos last month. Bin Laden himself was finally killed by a team of U.S. Navy SEALs at a hideout in Pakistan nearly a decade after 9/11. But as night fell on Ground Zero 20 years ago, New York ambulance crews sat in an eerie silence. Iron workers grabbed tools and headed down to help any way they could. Reporters getting closer and closer too, including a much younger version of myself. Here about 4 blocks from what used to be the World Trade Center, the first thing you notice is the dust and the debris. Down here in the street, there are papers that have flown out of the office building itself. My wife Jana and I had just had a baby 4 weeks before 9/11 and were living in Midtown Manhattan at the time, until our own apartment building got evacuated by another terror threat, this time at the Empire State Building. Janine, that's when this really hit home for me. I'd been working virtually nonstop since the terrorist attack, and I got a frantic phone call from my wife last night, and she told me, we're being evacuated, there's a bomb, there's a bomb, there's a bomb, I gotta go, and hung up the phone. You know, I was still at work, I was still down here near the World Trade Center site, but that shook me a little bit. Well, I got my family safely out of the city. Other heartbroken families were still searching, putting up posters all over Manhattan, begging for any information on their missing loved ones.
Sharon Milan, my sister-in-law, she's 30, about 5'6", 128 pounds, and home.
One of those missing, 25-year-old South Bend native Katie McCloskey, who just moved to New York after graduating from Indiana University with a new IT job on the 97th floor of the North Tower, right about where that first plane hit. The 1994 John Adams High School graduate just starting her new life in the big city when it was tragically cut short.
I would just want the family to know that their sacrifice is totally appreciated, and it's very, very dear to my heart.
Like Katie McCloskey 2 decades earlier, Deja Moore is a South Bend Adams High School graduate, and a memorial scholarship fund set up by Katie's family helped put Deja through college at Indiana State University, even though the two never, ever met.
It meant a lot to me because I was able to, one, go to college almost for free. My parents only had to pay for my room and board, which wasn't a lot.
And Deja's heart still goes out to the McCloskey family for their unimaginable loss and their generosity.
I would really just want to thank them personally, just for allowing Katie's experience to be a part of my experience, allowing her name to mean so much to me and my family, and for me personally in my career, in my college career. I knew exactly what that scholarship was, and I really, really, truly appreciate it.
But it's not just Deja Moore. So far, 20 different South Bend Adams graduates active in school, sports, and their community have gotten the Katie McCloskey Memorial Scholarship, $12,000 toward college costs over 4 years.
When I think of the Katie McCloskey Scholarship, I think about something beautiful that came out of a terrible tragedy.
Rose Meissner is the president of the Community Foundation of St. Joseph County, overseeing the grant program.
Katie remains forever young through this scholarship, and she symbolized somebody who couldn't wait to get to New York, who got to work of all places in the World Trade Towers, so excited and lively and talented. And it's a beautiful thing that she won't be forgotten. Her memory continues on.
And if she ever gets to New York City again, Deja Moore plans to visit the solemn World Trade Center Memorial Site, right under the soaring new Freedom Tower that replaced the World Trade Center. And hopefully, she can find the name Katie Marie McCloskey forever etched in granite there.
That means a lot, just understanding the sacrifice to where the scholarship has come from, you know. But I really just would want the family to know, and I know any other recipient of this amazing scholarship would want the family to know that that effort was not in vain, you know, and turning that situation into something positive and giving back to Katie's community means the world. You know, there's no better cycle. So I just really, really want the family to know that it's truly deeply appreciated. And a part of Katie has gone on with all of us in our careers and our lives. She's a part of that now.
That young woman, Deja Moore, is now giving back to the community herself, working for the South Bend Empowerment Zone schools dedicated to getting struggling students back on track academically and socially. So far, the Katie McCloskey Memorial Scholarship has given out $175,000 in grants to local college students at Adams, and the fund keeps on growing. There's enough money in it so students will keep getting scholarships from Adams High School for another 20 years or even longer. That is the good news, something positive coming out of such a horrible tragedy 20 years ago. We are here on Twickenham Drive right now near South Bend Fire Station Engine Company number 8, and we're waiting for the arrival of the March to the Memorial. Dozens of people carrying American flags right now, marching 21 miles from the Martin Supermarket at Erskine Plaza all the way to the St. Joseph County 9/11 Memorial. It's going to take them about 8 hours to get there, and they're due to arrive here any moment at this fire station where they're taking a break.
We were supposed to go over to a location 10 blocks north of the towers that morning.
Bob Lyons was working for a major telecom company in New Jersey, heading to a job in Lower Manhattan 20 years ago when planes hijacked by Islamic terrorists suddenly slammed into the World Trade Center towers with devastating results.
While I was waiting for the carpool, was when the first plane hit. We went upstairs to the rooftop to look at the buildings. You could see them.
You could see the skyline of Manhattan.
Yep.
What did you see?
There's smoke for miles going south, and I really thought it was an accident. That's something I'll never forget.
And Lyons, who now calls Granger home, doesn't want anyone else to forget what happened on September 11th, 2001, when nearly 3,000 people lost their lives in the deadliest terror attack in U.S. history. That's why he created the March to the Memorial back in 2018, a 21-mile walking salute through St. Joseph County in honor of all the victims, survivors, and heroes that fateful day and beyond. Have people forgotten what 9/11 was?
I think so. Definitely to a degree. I mean, if they weren't directly affected by it somehow, it's easy as time passes. I don't want this to fade into the sunset. I will never have a normal 9/11 again. I can't go to work. I can't just go to a game. It's just something that I can't do. This is something that, you know, sort of the universe, if you call it, has just called me to do.
The free, nonpartisan, non-political march will stop at South Bend fire stations along the way until they arrive at St. Patrick's Park and the St. Joseph County 9/11 Memorial, dedicated there back in 2004. It's officially called the Freedom Memorial, standing tall, and has become a local shrine in honor of those who lost their lives 20 years ago. Some people coming, even leaving mementos like these poker chips and a small hand-painted red, white, and blue rock with the letters USA. When he moved here from Iowa, Bob says he knew the soaring sculpture and 4-foot steel beam from the World Trade Center wreckage itself just had to be part of the annual remembrance.
It's a quiet somberness. I don't know if everybody in the area knows it's even here.
And he hopes to somehow rekindle the feeling of togetherness and national pride uniting Americans in New York City and all over the country in the immediate aftermath of 9/11.
I remember walking around in Lower Manhattan and just seeing all the signs, Hero Highway, you know, God bless you, and all the water that people had donated on the side of the streets, and you know, American flags everywhere. At the end of the walk every year, I always tell people, okay, you know, let's go forward and let's try to live like it's 9/12 again, like we're all one. Because I am not the biggest fan of the division at all, and so you know, we do our part to try to squash that.
Bring people together.
Absolutely, because this is and not only this for 9/11, but it's also for the community, to bring the community together. And I'm glad to put this stuff out there because there's so much other stuff that divides everybody.
It's been 20 full years since the terrorist attacks changed our nation's life forever. Take a look behind me here. You can see all of the flags that have been placed here at St. Patrick's Park today, placed by St. Joseph County police, firefighters, and park coordinators to remember all of the lives lost. 2,977 mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, friends, and heroes' lives taken far too soon. And to keep their memory alive, South Bend, Clay, and Mishawaka Fire and Police Departments gathered this morning at St. Pat's Park at their Standing Tall Memorial for a 9/11 ceremony. It all started at 9 a.m. with the singing of our national anthem and ended with the annual ringing of the bell and taps. Coming together to honor everyone affected is one way participants say while thousands of loved ones may be gone, they'll certainly never be forgotten.
You're looking at these buildings and you knew, I mean, we even talked about it and said, you know, those guys that are going in aren't all coming back out. Everybody, at about this time of year, everybody sees around signs that say never forget. And the meaning of that is obviously never forget the events, but never forget the people.
Now, while ceremonies just like these only happen once a year, there is a memorial that is up and out all year long. Now, for a full list of 9/11 events that you can participate in, I'll have a full list up on our website at ABC57.com. Live in South Bend, I'm Allison Zeithammer, ABC57 News.
It is God, country, and Notre Dame. Earlier today, hundreds gathered to remember and reflect. At 8:46 exactly, a minute of pure silence spread across the crowd on campus, all in reverence of the exact time the first plane was flown into One World Trade Center in 2001. 3,000 flags placed in the ground to represent the lives lost. Following the moment of silence, Notre Dame's Reverend Malloy spoke to the crowd just as he did on this day in the same spot 20 years ago. He spoke of that tragic moment, then when the university and city came together similarly to this morning's ceremony. It was a crowd full of people from the city, officers, students, and even alumni such as Margie Higgins, who was a sophomore in the year of 2001.
Sitting in my dorm, I was in Farley Hall. Turn on the TV, everyone said. And as we watched it live on TV, we didn't know what to do. What do? You're far away from your family, you're far away from your friends and your home. And Monk Malloy said, we're going to have a prayer service. And probably not only the entire campus, but the entire city came here. And for them to set up a prayer service in just a few hours for over 10,000 people was probably one of the most memorable days of my life.
Now, 1 week following September 11th, 2001, Notre Dame played Michigan State, and during the halftime, they played Amazing Grace. And today's during the game against Toledo, once again, Amazing Grace will be playing.
Just in, you were looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center.
There's been some sort of explosion at the World Trade Center in New York City.
You're talking about a large passenger commercial jet.
Most of us remember exactly where we were and what we were doing when two hijacked airplanes crashed into the World Trade Center towers in New York City 20 years ago. I was sitting in a school cafeteria. 9/11 used to be a trauma shared by everyone. Now, no student sitting in a high school classroom remembers that fateful day in U.S. history.
20 years now have gone by, and so I'm assuming the next couple of days you'll see a lot about it. These are the four routes. There was 4 planes involved in the attack.
9/11 is history, not a memory for these students at New Prairie High School.
A lot of news as they come on air in the morning, you know, they give their hellos basically. That's what you're going to see, and there's some kind of eerie, you know, knowing what happens after, right after it, kind of some eerie comments made, and you'll get to see that.
It is beautiful outside, perfect September day with lots of sunshine. Oh, would you look at Washington, huh? I'm going outside today.
Other than that, it's kind of quiet around the country. We like quiet. It's quiet. It's too quiet.
You know, it's been 20 years now, coming up on Saturday, and none of our students were alive at the time. So they really have, other than what they've heard from other people that may have been alive, you know, they don't have that firsthand account of it. When I first started teaching, you know, teaching high school, and it was like 2006, 2007, they lived it and they remembered it, and they could, you know, they had their own firsthand accounts of their memories of it, to now where they don't.
20 years later, students know 9/11 was serious, but they don't
don't have anything tangible to tie it to. Most of them have no personal connections to it. But even if students have no memory of 9/11, their lives were still largely affected by it.
Anybody heard about how life changed after 9/11? You guys aren't aware? You know, we look at the big picture. You know, where have we gone as a country since then? What impact did it have? You know, and that was easier, you know, talking about it 15 years ago, the students could see the impact firsthand, whereas now they don't realize it because all they have known is post 9/11.
After the Twin Towers came crashing down on 9/11, it changed how we travel, and America became laser focused on the war on terror. These are the things New Prairie history teacher Mark Schellinger teaches his students about.
This is horrible.
Okay, so right here is when the second plane hits, and by now cameras were downtown. It's clear something's not right. This is not just an accident.
I feel like it was very somber. Like usually in classes, like people will talk or joke around, but in that class, in that atmosphere, it's kind of more respectful, and people are actually kind of like thinking about what happened.
We've never had something like this happen before, and haven't had anything like that happen since.
Do you find that students often view 9/11 as some kind of long gone history?
I do. You know, like I said, you know, without living through it, it seems like it's another part of history. You know, I think with it being more recent, you know, at least it's been in the 2000s, so they can relate to that. Whereas, you know, in history class we talk a lot about events from 1800, 1900s. You know, it seems like ancient history to them. Whereas this does seem a little bit more relevant to them.
A tough day to remember in U.S. history, but an important moment for students to reflect on what's changed in our country and to never forget.
Do you struggle conveying the magnitude of what happened to our country to students?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. If you didn't live through it, it's sometimes hard to understand that part of it, the big picture changes. And you're just really to try to convey it to them and get that message across that, you know, this changed everybody's life. You know, not just the people in New York, not just the people in Washington. You know, everybody throughout the country and really everybody throughout the world was impacted by this one day and this one event. And you know, 20 years later, we still see the impact of those events.
Schools teach about 9/11 in different ways across Michiana. Some districts we spoke to don't teach about it at all. The lessons can understandably unsettle young students. So if you are teaching your kids about the terror attacks at home, it's important to be patient and comforting.